The first race of the 2026 Formula One season just took place. Let's go through how each driver and team has performed, starting with the worst performers of the weekend, ending with the highest scorers of the Grand Prix, starting with Aston Martin. The best thing about Aston Martin right now is the interviews. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, both of them are having some nice zingers to keep everybody's hopes up and keep everybody entertained. There is a lot of positive as well, and by lot I mean one, which is they are actually making some progress and their performance isn't that horrible. Fernando Alonso's race start in the 2026 Australian Grand Prix was good. He made up a lot of places. I mean, obviously, with time, the car broke down, and it is what it is. He couldn't finish the race, and a similar esque thing happened with Lance Stroll. I mean, they just went in, did some laps, got some data that they didn't get through the entirety of testing. So, in some regards, there are some positives to be taken, but when you are literally at the rock bottom, everything is a positive, right? So, like any kind of movement is only going to be upwards because you're at the rock bottom, hence it is positive. But other than that, it seems like they do have a good package. One of the mistakes that Aston Martin has made was not keep tabs or close eyes on Honda's engine development progress. And as a result of that, when like Adrian Newey and Lawrence Stroll actually visited the Honda's factory in Japan in November 2025, a few months before the 2026 season, a few months before lights out in Melbourne, November 2025, they realized that they're significantly behind schedule. But it is what it is. This is the last season of Fernando Alonso in Formula One, arguably, and it seems to me that until the mid-season, until the first 5 or 6 races, they're not going to be competitive at all. And in the next 5 to 6 races, the objective for these two guys is to have a car underneath them that can actually go the full race distance and not drop behind the rest of the pack by like 10 laps or something. So that's the thing. We move on. Cadillac. Now, again, about Cadillac, these two guys are just happy to be on the grid. And there are actually a lot of positives. The first positive is that they successfully completed the qualifying session and one of their cars went the full race distance. Their reliability seems to be good. And I know that Valtteri Bottas's car had some problems. That's why he had to park it at the pit entry. Couldn't finish the race. But at the same time, if you look at how they have fared through the testing, they have done a lot of laps and the reliability of their overall package seems to be solid. Now, in terms of competitiveness, I guess only time will tell. They have the Ferrari engine. They have the software in which they manage the recharge and everything. And if you optimize that, you can really have a really good race start. We know this. And Ferrari-powered engines do have good race starts. Esteban Ocon had a good race start. Both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc had good race starts. Lewis Hamilton got a little bit pinched at the start. That's why he couldn't make up as many places. I think he was pinched a little bit by Kimi Antonelli. But overall, there is a lot of performance to be unlocked by Cadillac. They have a nice foundation. Big shout out to the team for having a nice, reliable enough foundation that they can build on. And yes, there is obviously going to be some gremlins in the car that they need to fix through the course of the season, but at the same time, great starting point. We move on. Williams. I was a lot disappointed in Williams' performance, and I guess I'm not the only Formula One fan who will say that. After last year, the hopes were really high. It was clean slate. These guys have the Mercedes power unit. In the chassis side, it seems like they were kind of getting their shit together. In 2025, they had 2 unexpected podiums, and Alexander Albon, at least in the initial phase of the season, was noticeably competitive. So I was kind of thinking that, you know what, you are now P5, got a lot of prize money, you have the Mercedes engine in the back, which is definitely going to be the class of the field, and we have seen it in the proof. Obviously, all those things are there. which means there is a chance that you are going to be at least a top 5 team. Obviously, I was wrong, and so were many other people. Their car is too heavy, there are reliability concerns, there is system integration issues, they are incapable of extracting the maximum power and performance out of their Mercedes engine. A lot of small issues are also there operationally as well. James Vowles, after the 2026 Australian Grand Prix, has explained that there were a lot of issues operationally in the workflow execution of a race weekend that prevented them from running their programs effectively. And as a result of that, there was a lot of running time left on the table. And in China, it's going to be difficult for these guys because it's a sprint weekend, which means very little time to put things on the car and practice, which is critical at the early stages of the season, especially when the regulations change is huge. So, we can still expect them to be behind and not score points or barely challenge for the points. They're half a second behind the midfield. That was in Australia. I think in 2026, it's going to be very similar to 2025 in the sense that Williams will have some good tracks and some horrible tracks. And I guess Australia is a bogey track for the Williams package. Hopefully, if they shed some weight from their car, there will be some tracks in which the Williams is relatively more competitive. Relatively more competitive in the remainder of the season. But I guess we will have to see to find out. We move on. Alpine. Alpine is the worst team on the grid. Yes, they are the absolute retarded worst team in the 2026 Formula 1 grid, and here is why. The first reason is they have stopped developing their 2025 car from almost the beginning of the season last year. And the logic behind that was that they wanted to put all of their available car development and engineering and technical resources into 2026, so that they're going to start the year with a nice foot on the right foot, not the nice foot. They will start the year and the new era on the right foot. They will have good performance. The car will be strong. And also they changed engine manufacturers. They went from Renault, like Renault was shit. They went with Mercedes, the most reliable and arguably, and as we know, it has been proven that Mercedes power unit is the best. So they have sacrificed a lot in 2025. They were literally the dead last team. All of the points in the team were scored by Pierre Gasly because he's the Max Verstappen of this team. And he was also Max Verstappen's teammate, so I guess that environment does something to you, skill-wise. But apart from that, like, they have sacrificed everything in 2025, remained dead last, kept their head down, all in a bid to have a nice package for 2026, and they're still shit. Pierre Gasly scored a point because he is Pierre Gasly. And I genuinely believe for the remainder of the season, they're going to be right outside of the points. Because we got a lot of teams who are completely capable of scoring points. First, we have Mercedes, we have Ferrari, we have McLaren, we have the Racing Bulls, we have the Haas. 10 drivers right there. And then obviously there are going to be other teams who will, make progress much, much faster than these French idiots. Who are they? I will still bet on Aston Martin because of the amount of resources they have, and also the race start that Fernando Alonso had in 2026 Australian Grand Prix was in a way impressive. Furthermore, Cadillac has a nice base to start on. Williams, led by James Vowles, and 2 amazing reliable drivers and a positive team environment, all of them have better chances of pipping Alpine and performing better than them. The only reason why Pierre Gasly was in the points is because Liam Lawson didn't have a good race start, and who else? Isaac Hadjar DNF'd because his engine blew up. Those are the only reasons why Pierre Gasly scored a point. Worst team on the grid, and I don't really care for them anymore. We move on. Audi. This is another rebrand that successfully worked, and also this is a thing that I missed talking about in the Alpine section, because Nico Hülkenberg could have been in the points. We saw in Gabriel Bortoleto's race performance and everything else that he is competitive. at least in the midfield, in the you know last part of the midfield. Pretty competitive in that part, part of the grid, I guess. And their car is reliable, brand new engine, started from the bottom, and I think, as far as rebrands go and starting from scratch goes, Audi did a massively amazing job. They got a whole rebrand, so much of a rebrand that we don't even have updated pictures of both of the drivers on the official Formula One website. They got a complete rebrand, built an amazing engine, amazing in the sense that it is reliable enough to serve as a solid foundation to have growth. And they have scored points in their debut. And whatever Gremlin troubled Nico Hülkenberg's car, I hope they're going to fix it in China and they will be much more competitive. The only area of concern I had before the start of the season for Audi was Nico Hülkenberg's qualifying performance, which seems to be fixed. One of the reasons could be the fact that Nico Hülkenberg is very old, so he is kind of very capable with the small cars and which are kind of punchy around the corners and which are very responsive and agile, as they call it. So I guess that in a way has improved Nico Hülkenberg's qualifying performance, and we will see for the remainder of the season whether that stays the way it does. But Gabriel Bortoleto, phenomenal performance at the first race of the new era of regulation change, score some points, and I think as they continually understand more about the car, and the best part is that their car is reliable. So if you have a reliable car, you can continue to experiment with different things and move things around until you get the performance that you want. So I guess we will keep an eye on them. We move on. Racing Bulls. Now there are two things to talk about here. The first thing is Arvid Lindblad, rookie of the season. There is no way this guy is not going to score a podium. There is no way this guy is not going to turn heads. First race, started P9. At a point, he was P3. Overtook Lando Norris, the defending world champion, which is crazy to say. I'll talk about Lando when we will get there. Then he overtook Lewis, overtook Isaac Ajar, and he was in P3. Obviously, that was kind of short-lived. And after that, he was challenged by Max Verstappen. He was defending against Max Verstappen properly, significantly better than what Lando Norris has ever done. And he also kind of did a similar-esque thing in the pit lane when he was going into the pit lane. So Arvid Lindblad, amazing racecraft, good IQ. He understands how to, recharge the battery properly and deploy it at the right stage. Has a good race start. His race start was very impressive if you go and watch the onboard. So Arvid Lindblad is the next Sebastian Vettel or the next Max Verstappen of Red Bull Racing family. And this season, if he scores a couple of podiums, I definitely believe he is going to be promoted to the main Red Bull team. So that's a very amazing thing to see. Fortunately, we have an amazing rookie. A lot of people were talking shit about him because he had a few crashes in the junior categories. So obviously there are going to be people who are talking shit, but fortunately, he broke all of those curses, 18 years of age, debut, new regulation change, new kind of car, never been in a Formula 1 weekend before, managed everything properly, came out on top. Completely locked in guy, great skills. Now the second part of the equation is Liam Lawson, and you gotta feel a little bit about the guy. You gotta feel a little bit of empathy for Liam Lawson because this is the second straight year in a row where he is being cooked. He is being literally cooked by a rookie teammate. Last year it happened with Isaac Hajar. Isaac Hajar was consistently good in qualifying and also in many cases in the race, and Isaac also had a podium in Netherlands. And Liam Lawson kind of just faded into the background and remained there while Isaac got the upgrade. I think in the remainder of the 2026 season, the same thing is going to repeat with Liam Lawson again, but this time with Lindblad. Lindblad is going to consistently put in great performances, which means Liam Lawson's future in Formula 1 looks sketchy. The thing is, the second driver, and when I say the second driver, I mean the driver who has poorer performance, relatively poorer performance. The number one driver, better performance. The number two driver, performs relatively poorly. The second driver in the Red Bull families, they're not long lived. They're very short lived, especially in the Racing Bulls, the sister team, the Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri, whatever the fuck you want to call it, in that team. Because the whole purpose of Racing Bulls is to train the drivers for the big leagues, which is the Red Bull team, the main team. It's the second full season of Liam Lawson, and he has been cooked by a rookie. I guess we will see. He definitely needs to get his shit together and start putting in some great performances, starting from China's sprint. He cannot fucking wait. Because if you sit there and perform poorly compared to young Arvid Lindblad throughout this season, then you're gonna fucking kicked out. You're getting kicked out. Red Bull Racing, they're going to replace you with somebody else. Right? Even if they don't replace you with somebody else, you kind of know that you're just kind of a seat filler. The moment Red Bull family will have a nice, young, promising young driver, they're going to kick Lawson out. So Liam Lawson definitely needs to drive to survive for this season. He needs to do 100%. Forget everything, cut everything off, stop appearing in Netflix. In the most recent Netflix season, Netflix's Drive to Survive, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and a bunch of other people didn't participate. Lawson needs to do that. Lock the fuck in. This kid is whooping your ass. So, that's the whole situation here. But definitely happy for Arvid Lindblad. The guy is going to be, the future of the team. And he definitely is like the new generation of rookie who is going to be a serial world champion. It definitely is going to happen. Now, with Max Verstappen feeling a little bit upset about the regulation change and not particularly happy, and Isaac Hadjar performing well, we will talk about both of them later stages. It definitely seems that Erwin Lindblad and Isaac Hadjar could be teammates in the future, but I guess we will see. I'm just speculating at this point. We move on. Why am I not moving on? Haas. So, two sides of the equation once again, but a little bit of similarities. So the first thing is Oliver Behrman, one of my favorite rookies last year, one of my favorite drivers this year. Great performance by him. The way he overtook Arvid Lindblad during their battle kind of was impressive. His battery management was on point, and this is where Behrman showed his experience. The only reason why he managed to set up and line up Lindblad properly and play the battery draining games properly and deployed that energy well in order to get ahead was purely because of his experience and his understanding of the game. And big shout out to him. Esteban Ocon, on the other hand, good guy, horrible teammate, had an amazing start, had a really good, amazing lap one. I think this is the thing that we're going to see throughout the season, like different engines will have different advantages. I think Ferrari engine, based on what we have seen so far, and the sample size of the data is not that big because we only one race in 2026, is that the Ferrari powered cars are going to be rocket ships at the start. And Esteban Ocon proved it. But later on, apparently in the race trim, his car was unstable and he found it difficult to put it on the track and extract the maximum performance out of it. Oliver Behrman's car allegedly had some understeering issues. So I guess that's why his performance or his ability to extract the maximum performance was kind of flawed. But I think these are just fixable issues. They need to find the right balance and setup window, and their car does have performance. And which again goes back to the initial point that I made about Alpine a few moments ago. Alpine is probably going to be like a backmarker team in 2026 as well. It's a matter of time before Cadillac fixes their shit. It's a matter of time before Aston Martin, builds a good enough engine where the vibrations are normal. When all those things happen, I don't think Alpine are going to make significant progress, especially when teams in midfield like Haas have come up with really good packages. Oliver Behrman has scored point on the debut on the first race of the new era of regulation. Esteban Ocon could have done the same. However, he finished P11, but he could have definitely done the same if he did not have those instability issue. Now, personally, I wouldn't believe Esteban Ocon. I would believe Flavio Briatore's opinion on Esteban Ocon, and according to him, he is just a spoiled brat who complains a lot. Makes sense. But if what Esteban says is true regarding the instability of the car in race stream and they fix that, great job by these two guys. I mean, amazing job by Haas if they manage to fix that. I guess we will see in China Sprint because the conditions are going to be completely different. Anyway, we move on. Verstappen.com Racing. After Isaac Hadjar qualified and lined up for third on the grid, I thought of changing it from Verstappen.com Racing to Red Bull Racing because fortunately Red Bull are going to have a driver who has lifted the second seat curse and is now performing well. And Isaac Hadjar, great qualifying, putting it on the second row because the Mercedes were literally unbeatable. They were like half a second clear of everybody else. Isaac Hadjar doing that was very impressive and his race pace was good. He got overtaken by Lindblad for a moment and then Lewis, but then he again got back to P4 and he kind of stayed there until he didn't. His engine blew up, so there's not much he could have done. I think it was related to system integration issues or something related to the setup, which is unique to Hadjar's driving style or preferences. But I genuinely believe that it was kind of like a one-off issue and they can definitely fix it down the line. Max Verstappen, on the other hand, phenomenal performance as usual. Started from dead last almost and finished P6. And he was pressuring Lando Norris massively and he wasn't able to get past him even with a new tire advantage, and primarily because the distance was a bit too much, so he just kept on pushing. But Lando, all the credit to him for defending against the mighty Max Verstappen. What this tells us is that these guys are definitely a contender for the World Championship. The reason why I'm saying that is because if you look at Max Verstappen's race pace and the way he started the race, Isaac Hadjar's race start was, not bad. I will not say it was very impressive, but it was decent. I think he dropped to P5 or something like that. It was decent. So their race pace is good. In terms of qualifying, they're right behind Mercedes, and that was Isaac Hadjar. Like, we don't know where Max Verstappen could have qualified if his rear axle didn't lock up and he was not yeeted into the fucking barriers. So their qualifying pace is also not that bad. Now, the thing about Mercedes is that Mercedes are good at qualifying. Over one lap, they're amazing. In the race stream, they're fast, but they're not noticeably faster than everybody else. You can say arguably that Mercedes are relatively faster in race stream, but Verstappen's race pace was much more impressive in my opinion. So I guess we will see in the upcoming few races about how these guys unlock more performance. Their engine is hella reliable, and it seems like their cars don't get affected as much as super clipping as, let's say the Haas or like whatever the other teams. So they have found a good balance for recharging their battery. The only thing they need to do right now is optimization, and Max Verstappen plays video games, so he will be extremely good at this, at recharging the battery and deploying it at the right stages of the track, right parts of the circuit, in order to gain an advantage. I genuinely believe that these guys are championship material. I don't know how many races they're going to win, and I don't know if they're going to be consistently fighting for pole positions and race wins. Probably not pole positions, but more so on race wins. But yeah, the first race was kind of like bogey-ish. Verstappen had that issue in qualifying. Isaac Hadjar's engine blew up, but going forward, things are looking much more hopeful in the Red Bull camp. We move on. McLaren. Where do we begin? Okay, so first let's talk a little bit about Lando Norris, the defending world champion. He is not going to be on the podium this season. This is a straight prediction from my side, and I'm not a hater saying it. The reason why I'm saying that is because Lando is not a good enough driver. In 2025, when you have the fastest car for the majority of the season and you win the championship barely by 2 freaking points, you ain't that good of a driver. The second thing is, now that McLaren don't have the fastest car, you can see Lando's subpar performance. It's not that impressive at all. It's not like he's pulling magic out of the car. It's not like he is taking the car into places that it doesn't belong. We saw that with Erwin Lindblad. We saw that with Lewis Hamilton. We saw that with Max Verstappen many times. We saw that with Sebastian Vettel. These guys will take the cars to places where it doesn't belong. Lando Norris will do it opportunistically. If people at the front fucked up, had a penalty or something like that, okay, Lando will be there to pick up the pieces. And he will be faster like over the course of one lap because he's a racing driver and he's actually quick in that regard. But when it comes to race execution, strategy planning, reading the race, positioning the car properly at the right circuits and, maximizing the value of the stint, he kind of sucks in that. And that's why when the car is not clearly the fastest, he will struggle to put it on the podium, let alone secure a win. The second thing we need to talk about is Oscar Piastri's mental retardation. Now, a lot of people are saying a lot of things, but I'm gonna blame Oscar for that crash on the way to the grid. How careless and reckless do you have to be to put the power down in such an irresponsible way that you just end up in the barrier and break the car into like 500,000 pieces? How irresponsible do you have to be? I don't think it was a technical issue at all. Okay, maybe something could have happened because the battery and the power unit, it's kind of like just 50-50 power division, and these things happen, especially in the new regs. But that didn't look like a technical issue to me. It looked like a skill issue. And Oscar Piastri has been doing it since 2025. Since 2025 Formula 1 season, where Oscar Piastri had a clear advantage over Lando Norris and everybody else. After the Netherlands Grand Prix, the Dutch Grand Prix. He started throwing the championship away, and that's one of the main reasons why Lando Norris won. Now this season, the start of the season, Oscar is, back on his way and he's doing all those type of things, which is definitely not going to help him if he wants to have any sort of chance of winning a world championship. You need to extract the maximum performance out of it. So, and at the same time, people are saying like it's the home Grand Prix curse and this is and that, but you cannot have these type of moments, Oscar, especially if you want to win a world championship. In the middle of the season, let's say, if McLaren boys and girls figure out a way to make the car supremely dominant, then Oscar Piastri, because of these type of retarded maneuvers, he would have lost so much points that he will be out of contention anyways. So, he just needs to go ahead, get his head down and maximize the performance of the car weekend after weekend. China was pretty good for Oscar last year. Last year in Melbourne, Oscar Piastri did not have a good performance. Then in China, he won. So 113th Chinese. I hope, his second home Grand Prix of the season, he can have a good performance. I'm still going to root for Oscar Piastri between these two guys. So, go Oscar. Hopefully he has a good performance in China. We move on. Ferrari. All right, there's a lot of things to take away from here. Plenty of amazing things to take away from here. The first thing is, the thing about the race starts is true. They are the best at race starts. They know how to, recharge the battery. They know how to deploy it properly at the start of the race so that they can blitz past everyone. Lewis Hamilton was a little bit pinched by Kimi Antonelli and everybody else. That's why he kind of, on the first lap, this was the first lap, first corner. Everybody is frantic. Everybody wants to gain a position. So Lewis Hamilton, as a result of that, started P7, kind of around P5-ish. Lando and Kimi Antonelli kind of like just pinched him into a corner, and he had to kind of take evasive action by not attempting an overtake, which was the right thing to do in that stage. Charles Leclerc started P4, went straight to the lead. Now, I guess we will see. And their race performance, and this is another thing that I want to talk about. Their race pace was actually very good. In Lewis Hamilton's final stint of the race, he was faster than the Mercedes guys. And the reason why I can say that is because he was, closing the gap to Charles, and Charles's gap to the Mercedes ahead was kind of constant. So Lewis was closing in to all three of them. He was kind of fast. And he said that he wanted the race to be longer. He could have overtaken Charles, and I totally and truly believe him. Lewis Hamilton's pace was actually like through the roof in that stage of the race. The only problem these two guys have right now is the qualifying pace. So in qualifying, it seems like Mercedes are going to lock out the front row in most, if not all, of the races. And the second thing is the biggest challenge in qualifying for Ferrari are going to be Red Bull. Isaac Hadjar is a motherfucker in qualifying, and we know that Max Verstappen, he's the best driver on the grid right now. Nobody cares about the McLaren boys, they're shit. So the top three teams, when I said the top three teams, I mean Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, they are the ones who are going to give us some amazing racing performances. The best part here entirely is that I think Red Bull have the best race pace. Mercedes have the best qualifying pace. Ferrari have the best race start and good race pace. So the boys in red definitely have like different kind of advantages. The biggest disadvantage, however, which was the same disadvantage they had in all those seasons in history, is their retarded pit wall. The people who call out strategies in Ferrari, they probably have Down syndrome or Asperger's or different kinds of genetic diseases which affects their cognitive abilities. And because of that, they kind of could have had a much better performance. And I know that we are saying Ferrari getting 3 and 4 and still hoping for a much better performance is kind of like a pinch me moment, because this didn't happen in 2025, the last season. But fortunately, we are in a position where we can say that P3 and P4 is not good enough for Ferrari, at least. So that's a positive. But hopefully, they definitely need to get their shit together in terms of strategy. Stop being reactive. Think for yourself. Split the strategies, especially if you got two cars in the play, like they had in the Australian Grand Prix, the season opener for 2026. And we'll see what happens. But if they continually make this type of mistakes, then in both Constructors and Drivers' Championships, both of these guys are going to fall off. But I guess we will see what happens in the upcoming races. Last year in China, Lewis Hamilton won the sprint race and he seemed to have great pace in the car. But obviously, that is not going to carry over to this season, because the regulations are different, the cars are different, etc., etc. But at the same time, their performance is actually better than last year. Obviously, they're going against mighty Mercedes. George Russell is Mr. Saturday. That guy doesn't miss. But there is something about Lewis and Charles this season that tells me that we are back in business. This might as well be the year of the horse. Only one way to find out. We move on. Mercedes. So there are two things that I just wanted to say. There's not much to talk about these guys. The first thing is, this is going to be a boring season if this trend continues. The reason why it will be a boring season is because George Russell is experienced enough to beat the shit out of Kimi Antonelli on track. And he's going to be so consistent and so good, especially with the one lap pace advantage of Mercedes, that he's going to stick it on pole. And if you're on pole, you have the best chances of winning, especially when your competitors are Red Bull, who have unreliable engines, and Ferrari, who have unreliable pit wall. So in a way, things are kind of set in stone, especially for George Russell. Now, the only way, which is the second thing that I wanted to say about Mercedes, is that the only way that this season can be interesting is if Kimi Antonelli rises up to the occasion and gives us a silver war. That's what we need to see. And there is possibility that it can happen. The reason why I'm saying that is because Kimi Antonelli had a crash in FP3. They didn't have much time to set up the car. He went straight to quali, put it on P2, put it on front row. Now, it obviously shows the talent of Kimi Antonelli, but on a side note, it also shows the advantage that Mercedes have without fine-tuning. If the car can be P2 and the P1 car is the other Mercedes, which is fine-tuned, you can only imagine that nobody else on the grid has a chance at pole position. Anyway, getting back to topic, Kimi Antonelli was driving a unfine-tuned Mercedes and put it on the front row. And he, like, because in park for me everything is locked in, he was driving the same car throughout the race, had a bad start, recovered from it, finished P2. And he was managing the gap to George Russell properly. So I'm kind of interested in seeing what more Kimi can do when the entire weekend goes to plan and he doesn't have these kind of crashes to throw him off his trajectory. Now, if and when that happens, if he takes the fight to George Russell and we get a nice silver war, then it's gonna be fun. Only then it's gonna be fun. But until then, it's gonna be a boring ass nightmare of a season, and couldn't really care much about it. So thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.